Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of Live with Google for Nonprofits. Thank you so much for joining us today. You should be seeing the live chat on the right of your screens, or if you're using mobile, it'll be below the live video. So if you're there in the live chat, say hi to us. Let us know your name, what organization you're representing, where you're from. It'd be great to know more about the audience today. As a reminder, the live chat is available for your questions as well. So please ask your questions, and our teammates will be in the live chat answering the questions, and we'll take a few at the end to answer live and during the show. Just one thing to note, we can't answer any account-specific questions. So if you have any of those, please check out the Google for Nonprofits Help Center or the Google Workspace Help Center, and those will be there to answer your questions. And there's a community forum where you can post your questions as well if they're account-specific. Awesome. So a couple reminders before we get started. So this will be recorded on our YouTube channel. It's at the same link that you're currently at right now. So if you want to come back and watch this later, go through some of the tips one more time, you can go to this link and you'll be able to watch this video. And you can also go to the Google for Nonprofits YouTube channel, and you can watch it again at your convenience. Another thing to note too is if you're looking for other episodes of Live with Google for Nonprofits, you can see those on our YouTube channel as well. There are also some overall webinars that go through Google for Nonprofits on how to get started, how to activate products. So if you're looking for any of that kind of content, it's there on our YouTube channel. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Live with Google for Nonprofits is a show that we do about twice a month, and we cover various topics about Google products, resources and trainings available for nonprofits, and different opportunities for nonprofits even outside of Google. So every week we have different speakers that come on and cover a specific topic. So today we'll be talking about Google Workspace for nonprofits. If you didn't hear the news, Google Workspace is officially available for nonprofits. So if you're logging in to your Google for Nonprofits account, you'll see Google Workspace. You'll be able to activate Google Workspace for nonprofits if you haven't yet. And I'm excited to let you know that we have two guest speakers joining us today. So I'll just go ahead and bring them onto the screen. So we have Kim. Kim is joining us today, and she is a Google Workspace product expert. She's been at Google for over 6 years, and she's excited to be here today to let all of you know about the different offers for nonprofits and to answer your questions. And we also have Meredith here. So you may have seen Meredith before across our YouTube channel. She's led a few webinars. She's the team lead for Google for Nonprofits, and she's been at Google for over 7 years. So she's also excited to be here today. So I'll let them take it from here.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having us. We're super excited to talk about Google Workspace. I'm going to kick things over to Kim to get us started, and we'll kind of go back and forth through a bunch of slides to give you a little bit of an overview. And then, like Isha said, we'll have some time for questions and all of that. So Kim, take us away.
Sure. If you move forward to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of why Google Workspace in general. So we've seen this more than ever the past year or so with the current environment and the work from home situation. The average employee is reporting feeling overworked and overwhelmed. And most technology really just exacerbates that problem. It's getting in the way. It's driving silos between people and teams and information, and really just adding erroneous steps and processes to getting things done. And then because of this, people end up wasting valuable time managing their disparate tools that they're using instead of, spending their time on high value human work. And in fact, about 20% of an average worker's time is spent looking for information. So just to put that into context, that's, if you have your workers working 8-hour days, they're spending over an hour and a half of that time looking for information. So we're really looking to use our search power and our artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities within these tools to kind of help solve that problem. Make sure that you're able to be resilient and succeed, and making sure that your people are spending time on the right stuff and not getting burnt out. If you move forward. So Google Workspace, really what we're doing here is putting people at the center so that even teams who have never met in person can feel like they're in the same room. Instead of distracting or adding erroneous steps to getting things done, The technology is anticipating our needs and helping surface the appropriate content so we can work more efficiently. So instead of like really rigid tools that only work one way and are really best in a traditional office setting, you're able to innovate and work how you want, wherever you want. And we're supported by these flexible, easy to use tools. All of this is really in service of delivering the best possible products and outcomes to your customers or, the folks that your organization is serving. So that's where Google Workspace comes in. It's designed to be and functions in a way that is truly helpful. So imagine technology so seamless and so intuitive that it feels like it's invisible, but it's always anticipating your needs and augmenting your work so that you can maximize your time. Pardon me. And reduce that wasted time I mentioned before. Sorry about that. I'll take a sip of water here. If you move forward, Meredith, to the next slide here. And so that's why over 3.6 million nonprofits users choose to use our apps every month. And it's even more if you look at, consumers, educational institutions, and businesses. That number would grow a ton. Even if you haven't used our apps before, you'll find that they're incredibly intuitive to use and helpful in a way that really endures and scales and flexes as your organization's needs evolve. In the next few slides, I'm going to hand it over to Meredith to tell you a little bit more about some of the nonprofits that are using this tool set today and how they're benefiting from it.
Amazing. So similar to Kim mentioning kind of how many nonprofit users are on Workspace, we see about 165,000 nonprofits around the world actively using Google Workspace on their digital transformation journey. And, we're super proud as a team to be able to support organizations that are doing such an amazing and wide range of things and have missions that are as diverse as ending homelessness or helping people connect to local volunteering opportunities or doing things like promoting science education. So Google Workspace, one of the things that I think is kind of amazing about it as a platform and that we've seen be really, really important for nonprofits is that it can really grow and evolve with your organization. So if you are entirely volunteer driven, you don't have full-time employees, you're really just kind of making it work with a bunch of different technologies. Google Workspace for nonprofits can be an amazing way for you to get some scale and some kind of just control and your arms around your work, the work that all the volunteers are doing for you. But hopefully, as most of you in the nonprofit space, I'm sure, are kind of looking to grow and expand your mission and your impact, Workspace can grow alongside you. So we'll talk a little bit about, the different features and functionality of Google Workspace, and then also about the different sort of availability for nonprofits of the different parts of the platform, so you can sort of see how that evolution might happen. For a couple of nonprofits, I'm just going to talk about some examples of, where we've seen Workspace work for them. And these organizations are kind of different sizes, different missions, different things that they're focused on in the world. So Adler Planetarium, based in Illinois, right on the shores of Lake Michigan, is America's first planetarium and museum dedicated to the study of astronomy and astrophysics. So this is a big organization. They have people coming to visit the museum. They have all of their staff, all of their volunteers, everyone kind of making this mission and experience work. But their challenge was that the organization has been around for so long that they actually had a bit of an outdated IT legacy. So they had a mix of different software they were using, and they were having some challenges just around that software not being very interoperable, and it was hampering collaboration. So Adler Planetarium moved over to Google Workspace with the help of a partner and really was able to sort of streamline how they use tools so that they can reduce time spent on meetings. They could improve team productivity through things like the use of Google Docs and the collaborative editing features. They boosted sort of the ease of use for employees because they could move from locally installed apps, like that are actually installed on a computer or a local device, to browser-based services. So it's much easier and more seamless to log in and use those things. And then I think most importantly for their IT team, which was managing a lot of things, they saw a 66% reduction in support tickets. So I know if you work for, a medium-sized or larger nonprofit, if you work in IT, you spend a lot of your time making sure that all the employees and volunteers and board members can get into their accounts and all that kind of thing. And so streamlining that process can really be an amazing value add. A totally different use case. The Last Mile is a California-based nonprofit that's on a mission to reduce the re-incarceration cycle by creating new pathways to jobs for prison populations. And as information services at the Last Mile had evolved, their technology needs were changing. Oh, don't worry, moving on to there we go. Now we have the Last Mile up. And so they're working on simplifying the services that they were maintaining for their organization, improving their security posture, and Kim's going to talk a bit about security for Workspace, and really streamlining their IT operations. And the Last Mile transition to the enterprise edition of Google Workspace just ahead of the COVID pandemic, and have been using Google Workspace features like secure LDAP service that's allowing them to safely and securely provide login access to the Chromebooks they use to teach and run their tech accelerator classrooms in the prisons that they support. So their team is able to kind of keep this really secure environment, but also let every student that's in their tech accelerator courses have the Chromebook to do their work on. Their team also uses Google Workspace collaborative apps like Google Meet and Drive to really keep collaboration and communication going even during the pandemic, which is a very, very common thing that we've been hearing from organizations over the last year. And as I mentioned, that growth, I think what's exciting for the Last Mile is that they have goals to grow from 23 classrooms across 6 states to programs in all 50 states in the next 4 years. So they can keep the Google Workspace platform and it can grow alongside their very ambitious goals for their organization. So last but not least, another kind of amazing example of Google Workspace supporting a nonprofit. Switchboard is the second oldest LGBT plus telephone helpline in the United Kingdom, and they provide phone, email, and instant messaging support to LGBT plus communities across the country. And they run this very impactful, always-on program, literally 24/7, with more than 200 volunteers. So they're always onboarding new volunteers. They need to train folks. They need to have a really secure and centralized platform to be able to do all that work. So they're using Google Workspace to make sure every volunteer has an account where they can access all of Switchboard's training, they can get up to speed on how to help, but it also keeps things a bit more safe and secure, obviously, given the nature of their service. They use things like cloud identity and access management to kind of consolidate and manage all the logins that they have so that they have fewer security vulnerabilities from lots of people logging in and lots of different passwords, for example. So really an important way of getting value out of Google Workspace that helps Switchboard do their work and bring their volunteers on quickly and more successfully. So Kim, I will hand it back over to you to talk a little bit more about what Google Workspace can do for some of these nonprofits.
My entire time at Google has been spent on this product, and I'm always still hearing new cool use cases, ways people are using these tools that they haven't before. So thanks for going over the use cases there. If you move to the next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about the product. Google Workspace includes all of these productivity apps that you know and hopefully love already if you've used them in a consumer or at a previous organization or education. We have a lot of universities in the United States and Canada that are using these tools. So it includes some apps that you may be familiar with: Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Meet, and more. And they're all together in this single place that's really designed to enable your workers to get work done easily and efficiently. And further, it enables your administrators to really tightly lock down and control how information is being shared, who workers are able to share information with, whether it's able to leave kind of the environment of your internal organization, things like that. So as you may have seen, if you've used these tools before, that they're able to move really seamlessly and effortlessly between their mail, their chat, their video calling and conferencing, content collaboration, really easily get work done, everything they need thoughtfully connected. Familiar tools, fewer distractions. So Google Workspace is built with consumer grade usability. Again, if you've used them in a consumer capacity, you've seen this before, with those added administrative benefits that you have as an organization. It puts people at the center to deepen that connection between your workers and your external folks, including potentially the people that you're serving. We're really focused on creating this immersive, inclusive product experience, like, for example, Meet, picture-in-picture. And Meet is one that, maybe we can focus on a little bit today. We've seen a ton of investment go into really developing that product, especially over the past year with the shift in work from home culture. So with the Meet picture-in-picture, you can actually see and hear the people you're working with, while you're collaborating in Gmail or in a doc or in a sheet or in a slide presentation. And you get all these nonverbal cues that come with actually seeing someone's face, as if you were working in person, all while talking through a problem and collaborating in real time. So it really captures some of that magic that comes from like seeing someone's face, being in the same place when you could actually just call a coworker over and work on a problem live. Our Meet video conferencing solution includes things like live captioning, in-meeting translation, adaptive layouts, and noise cancellation, and a lot of these mature features that make it really easy to work via video conference. We've been working really hard to add helpful features that make it easier to get your most important work done. So for example, in docs, sheets, and slides, you can now preview, edit, and collaborate on a linked file without having to open a new tab. So you can see that in the graphic here, which really just means less time spent switching between apps and tabs and more time getting work done. And if you haven't use doc sheets and slides before to collaborate on documents, it's one of those things that we talk about a lot and we'll tell you how cool it is, but you really, it really becomes real when you actually get your hands on the product and start using it. So I'd highly recommend testing it out. It's these little time-saving features that really make a difference in that larger time saving that I mentioned before, the 20% of time that people are looking for stuff. It's these little time saving features that make the difference, especially, when every minute you spend at work is a minute you could be doing something else, helping your kid with their homework or working on something more important than sending a document around and having a million versions and trying to compile them and things like that. So, smart data tools make analysis really easy and more accessible, again, saving you time. So you can even connect BigQuery data to Sheets to analyze billions of rows of data, and you don't need to know SQL. And we've built in AI-powered tools like Smart Compose, which is really cool. It learns kind of how you speak, how you speak in a digital setting, and kind of predicts what you're trying to say. And Smart Reply does the same kind of thing, which suggests basically complete sentences based on your start of the sentence. So pretty cool. Quick replies, they help you, again, just communicate faster. And then the last kind of point I'll drive home here is flexibility. Flexibility across an open collaboration platform is really essential to power a work from anywhere culture, again, like the one we've seen a big emphasis on the past year plus, I guess now at this point. We pioneered real-time collaboration with the launch of Google Docs back in 2006. And we're really continuing to innovate and make that collaboration more fluid and seamless and efficient. So over time, our products have become more integrated, and the lines between our apps have kind of started to disappear to give you kind of everything on this one pane of glass view, kind of like what you're seeing here. So we recently also introduced a better home for work in Gmail that thoughtfully brings together all of these tools, chat, email, voice, and video calling with Meet into this single unified experience. So whether it's a team within an organization or a group of people from a bunch of different organizations, or the folks that your organization serves, you can create a secure chat room to communicate with a group of people. And track projects, open and collaborate on content, jump into a meeting, search your files, etc. All right there as you're looking at Gmail. And this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Google Workspace benefits from the same security posture that Google itself runs on. So Google started in the cloud and runs in the cloud. And so we fully understand the security implications of, powering your business in the cloud. And because Google and our enterprise services run on the same infrastructure, your organization will benefit from the same protections that we've built and use ourselves every day. So, our robust global infrastructure, along with dedicated security professionals and our drive to innovate, really enables Google to stay ahead of the curve and offer a highly secure, reliable, and compliant environment that's easy to manage. Again, empowering those administrators to really easily and without having to be like a very mature IT professional, you can manage this account and really lock down and control how your users are working and sharing information. And back to you, Meredith.
Awesome. I guess we have a couple of questions that have come in so far that maybe we can address quickly before we switch gears. So one quick question for you, Kim, from Alex. Are there desktop versions of the Google apps? Because obviously there's maybe one for Drive and Chat, but is there one for things like Gmail?
So the short answer is no, not any that Google have developed. The slightly longer answer is we would encourage you to use it. It's designed to be used in the cloud. So browser-based Gmail access is what we would recommend.
Yep.
We also, however, understand that some folks really want to work through an email client. So it can be compatible with clients that you use like Apple Mail or Outlook or Thunderbird.
Yep, awesome. And I think one thing that I know I learned when I left my previous role and started at Google and started using things like Gmail and Drive and all of that in my professional life as well as in my personal life is, switching from like click an app to open like an installed product versus just always having browser tabs with, I have a tab with Gmail, I have a tab with Drive, I have a tab with like all the different things I'm working on. It can be a little bit of a shift, but I can't honestly imagine going back. So that's something to think about too, is, you get to be able to leverage the fact that anytime you open a browser, you can open any of the Google Workspace content that you need and have it right at your fingertips. So it's a great opportunity. Okay, so a couple of other questions came in about Google Workspace for nonprofits, G Suite for nonprofits. So we're going to get into that right now. So what is the nonprofit offer and how is Workspace related to G Suite? All excellent questions. So Google Workspace for nonprofits is free for nonprofit organizations that sign up through the Google for Nonprofits program. If you go to google.com/nonprofits, that's the website for the Google for Nonprofits program. And you can see from that website all of the offerings. And there are things other than Google Workspace that are available. But this URL that you're seeing now is where you can look at the Google Workspace offer specifically. And so you'll actually see this this table and you can dig into it in a bit more detail. We also have gotten an awesome set of discounts off of the standard pricing for Google Workspace editions that are a little bit more advanced. So the business and enterprise editions give you additional features. If your organization is looking for things like a lot more storage per user, or some of the really advanced security features that Kim mentioned that some of the nonprofits that I spoke about earlier needed and wanted to utilize, those are often in either the business or the enterprise editions. But take a look and see. If you want to dig one level deeper than this, the next kind of option, if you scroll down that page, is a way to compare in more detail. And this will actually give you a table that shows all the different apps and kind of what's available in the different nonprofit specific editions. So, the things that you're expecting from a Google Workspace account, email at your nonprofit's domain, all of the phishing and spam protection that blocks a lot of attacks that come through email, all of the meet and video conferencing functionality that you really need to be successful now. The vast majority of that is in the Google Workspace for Nonprofits edition. You also get access to Google Classroom through Google Workspace for Nonprofits. So if your organization does, after school tutoring, if your organization does any kind of educational programs with kids and you're trying to bring a lot of it virtual right now, or if maybe you're just training your volunteers virtually, Google Classroom can be an amazing tool for that. You also, through Google Workspace for Nonprofits, get access to shared drives, which is a way for your organization to sort of own the files that are created within your drive, as opposed to them being created by an individual. And then if that individual leaves for whatever reason, your admin has to go in and assign a new owner. So shared drives can be a really great tool as well. So Workspace, Google Workspace is the new sort of brand and experience for G Suite. So if you're confused, don't be. It's kind of a shift in the brand and lots of new and awesome stuff that the Google Workspace team is launching all the time. I don't know, Kim, if you want to add anything around, the difference between the two.
Yeah, the short answer is there isn't really a difference between the two, except that we're continuing to develop these tools, with the rebrand from G Suite to Google Workspace. They reorganized the product a little bit and they're continuing to add functionality all the time. So if you're familiar with G Suite, you will be familiar with Google Workspace. It's mostly just a name change, but they're always continuing. We take a ton of user feedback and are always continuing to develop and, are prioritizing the features that you guys want, or trying to at least.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Awesome. One quick question before we jump ahead to the next section from Mikhail. What's the best way to collaborate, like giving access to read or edit docs with external people without Google accounts? And is there kind of a suggestion you have there about the best way to do that?
Yeah, they've made this a lot. To my previous point, they have really developed this functionality over the past few years. You can actually share externally. You share with, a user's email address, and even if they don't have a Google account, they'll get an email with a PIN, and they can access that document and make edits, suggestions, comments, etc., directly in the document without having a Google account. So it's a newer functionality, but pretty cool.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful.
Pretty powerful. Yeah.
All right. So if you are not already in the Google Workspace ecosystem, how do you get access to Google Workspace for Nonprofits? This is really this is a lot of what myself and Isha and other folks on the Google for Nonprofits team do. There's a couple of steps to this process. So first and foremost, if you head to our website at google.com/nonprofits, you can take a look at the eligibility requirements for our program. We are in 67 countries, and what it means to be sort of an eligible nonprofit is slightly different country to country. So there's lots of detail at our website for your specific country. Once you've taken a look at that information, at the top right of the Google for Nonprofits website, you can click that big blue button to get started and request an account. And we will ask for a bunch of information from you about your organization and yourself as the person applying. And then we'll work with TechSoup, which is the validation partner we work with globally. And TechSoup has local partners. So sometimes in the country that you're in, it may not be TechSoup specifically, it may be a TechSoup partner. We'll actually work with you to validate your organization. So making sure you meet the eligibility requirements and all the legal requirements for your nonprofit, and then making sure that you are associated with your nonprofit as well. Once you get through that process and are approved for a Google for Nonprofits account, you'll be able to log in and see all the products in the suite. Google Workspace for Nonprofits is one, but there's also ad grants, the YouTube nonprofit program, and Google Maps platform credits that you can take a look at. And from there, you can go through the activation flow for each of those individual products. So it's a couple of steps. We know it's a little bit, everybody wants to click once and be done. And in a perfect world, it would be that way. But this is sort of the flow that you'll walk through. Once you have access to and have activated Google Workspace for Nonprofits, you have access to the same level of kind of customer support through the Google Workspace support teams as anyone else would. So you can get in touch with them through the admin console, which is kind of how you interact with Google Workspace if you're the administrator, to really take it from there. So another quick question that popped in, will G Suite accounts be migrated to Workspace? to Kim's point, you already were. If you log in as an administrator right now, if you had a G Suite for Nonprofits account, if you log into your admin console and look at like the billing tab, it's already called Google Workspace for Nonprofits. So there's nothing that you need to do. That all of that has already been magically taken care of. So always great to have that process happen auto-magically, as we like to say. So I think that's the end of the slides that we have. I guess, Kim, a question that I would ask you is, how are organizations using Google Meet, and how has that kind of been, I think that's one of the things we spend at Google a lot of our days on Google Meet with one another, but are any kind of things come to mind around the benefits of Google Meet and how different organizations have been using that you've spoken with?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, for Google, it wasn't that big of a transition because we were using it, all the time, even previous. But with this work from home, this shift in culture to work from home, we've seen a lot of organizations adopting it. Like I mentioned before, there's been a ton of development in terms of the features that are available. So they've tightened up some of the security functionality. Random people can't pop into your meeting and like meeting crash or whatever they were calling it when that was a problem earlier last year with some other services. How are people using it? We've seen like a total shift to, fully collaborating via Meet. A lot of organizations are having all their meetings over Meet. You can do cool things like, if you're collaborating on a document, you can cast it to the screen. Everybody's looking at it. Everybody's collaborating on it. You have one version. You have a 30-minute meeting and you're done with this work that you needed to do. They've also implemented like polls. So, a Q&A. So, you can live stream, like if you have a company all hands or something that your whole organization is on, you can live stream it, and only the participants that need to be engaging will be in, and everybody else is watching. You can ask questions live, kind of like what we're doing here. Lots of new and improved functionality that kind of enables people to basically work, conduct all their business via Meet from home, with this culture shift. So I think you're muted, Meredith, or
Of course it was going to happen.
always at least once.
Oh, you're muted. We had a meeting recently with about, I would say like 50 or 60 of us, and a couple of new teams had joined. And so we wanted to do like a little sort of just meet and greet, but it's a lot with 60 people on like a virtual call. So we used breakout rooms, and it was pretty great to have like a smaller group to chat. And then the breakout rooms, like as soon as the meeting admin kind of like kicked us all back into the main meeting room, so you don't have people like accidentally in the breakout rooms for 20 minutes longer kind of a thing. You just like automatically came back into the main call. So
totally. I'm glad you mentioned breakout rooms. That's another great one that was launched recently. And we've been using it a ton, even like internally at Google for training. I just went to a training earlier today where, they teach you something, they put you into breakout rooms to do practice activities and things like that. And then everybody comes back in and you kind of talk about it. So yeah, enough new features and cool functionality that I forgot to mention a major one just now even. So yeah, all good signs.
Yep. We are definitely at Google often the beta testers for anything that goes live to the public. So we're always like, oh, fun, breakout rooms. And, those things get launched. It's exciting to see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I have a couple more questions that I've seen come up in the chat. And everybody on the chat, feel free to continue asking. We're here for a few more minutes. So use the chat. So one question that we actually see a lot, both on the community forum, and then we've also gotten the question in the chat too, is just about logging into Admin Console. We know there are two logins. We have Google for Nonprofits and we have Admin Console. Meredith, you want to go through kind of just the process to log in?
Yeah. We know and hear you and feel your pain. It's a little bit confusing. So to Isha's point, to get access to Google Workspace for Nonprofits, you first created that Google for Nonprofits account. You need to create your Google for Nonprofits account, like a Google login, basically. So typically people will use their a Gmail account. They might use their personal, they may make a new Gmail account. So that gets you into Google for Nonprofits. But then once you sign up and activate Google Workspace for Nonprofits, you actually have an admin account. It's typically at yourdomain.org, like whatever the domain was that you signed up for Google Workspace with, that's now your administrator for your Google Workspace account. And you log in to Google Workspace as the administrator at admin.google.com. So if you try that and you're in like a Chrome window or whatever, where you've previously logged in to your personal Gmail maybe, or to any other account, it's going to show you this error that says like only, Google Workspace administrator accounts can log in here. So one option is like look at the drop down and kind of pick the right account from the drop down. The other one, Kim and I were talking about this earlier, is use an incognito window, because that way you know exactly what account you're logging in with, because it'll basically ask you then what account you want to log in with.
Incognito windows are my best friend.
Yeah, exactly. So when in doubt, try incognito. The other thing I super duper recommend is, I know it's a lot of logins, it's like hard to keep track of stuff. When you are signing up for Google Workspace for Nonprofits, so when you go through the trial flow before it gets fully activated, in that flow, it'll ask you, what's your current email? And you're like, oh, I'm Meredith at gmail.com, which is not my actual email. And then it'll ask you, what email do you want at your nonprofit? And you'll say like, oh, well, I want Meredith at mynonprofit.org. Once you get approved, Meredith at yournonprofit.org is the admin. So like, make sure you're writing all of the things down, because that's sometimes where people can get a little bit stuck.
Yeah, I often use Google Password Manager to save a lot of my passwords, because I always forget logins, and you can use something like that. Or there's a lot of secure password management systems that you can use.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Definitely recommend something like that too, to keep track, especially when you're actually in the process of activating, because that's when you're creating it.
Yep.
And there are resources on the Google Workspace Help Center for account recovery. So if you're in a situation where you've exhausted all your options, you can definitely look there too.
I highly recommend not forgetting your password, especially before there's a technical step where you verify your domain, which is where you're basically proving that you're the owner of the domain. And every once in a while, I'll have someone who forgets before they verify their domain, and it's not a fun process. It's not an easy process necessarily to get you back in. So just to double down on everyone's point here, make sure you're writing down all those passwords and credentials and stuff as you go, as you're setting them up.
Awesome. Thank you both. We have a couple more questions, so I'll keep rolling through. So I saw a question about best practices on shared drives. Are there any resources on using shared drives, or maybe we can even talk a bit about like use cases on that feature?
Tons of resources on using on using it, on best practices. I highly recommend the Learning Center. Learn.googleapps.com, and it probably has a newer, prettier one that reflects Google Workspace better, but I've been around since back when it was called Google Apps, so I'm used to that URL. Learn.googleapps.com gives really detailed guidance on using all the apps, shared drives included. Best practices on using shared drives, I would say organizational units. If you set up organizational units, it makes it really easy to control, who has access to what. So you can create like your HR organizational unit, and then you control, via the organizational unit, you control who's in that group. And then, if that's the group that has access to the shared drive, then as you have turnover within that department or what have you, it's managed via, whoever is in that organizational unit is who has access to the shared drive. And to Meredith's earlier point, that's the great thing about shared drives, is that if you have high turnover at your organization, people are dropping important documents and resources and things into these shared drives. And then when they leave, you as the administrator aren't tasked with like making sure that, you don't lose that information. It'll stay there. The ownership of the files that are in this shared drive stay with the team. So it makes it really easy to manage. I guess my best tip would be managing via organizational units and checking out the Learning Center.
The one thing I'll add is we often see organizations that have a lot of volunteers, for example. If you're giving your volunteer a login and an email at your nonprofit's domain, which is actually a really great thing to do because it keeps kind of the security of anything the volunteer is creating and that kind of stuff within your domain. Sometimes we see what happens is when volunteers leave or whatever it is, instead of deleting that user and kind of freeing up that seat in your nonprofit's account for a different person, we see nonprofits just like keep that user around forever because they have all these files in their drive, and no admin wants to go in and be like, okay, of the 10,000 files that Isha created, like who should own these now? Shared drives is a really great a great way to keep that from happening. So if Isha is a volunteer for 9 months and does all of her work and it all goes into her volunteer program shared drive, if for whatever reason she's off to do her next adventure and she's not volunteering anymore, you don't have to reassign anything, and like there aren't really any documents you have to worry about in Isha's login. So you could, if you wanted to, once she's no longer a volunteer, like say that you actually want to delete that account instead of kind of keeping it in this inactive state forever. So that can be another good benefit there.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I feel like our team often uses shared drives, and it's really great too, because if you're looking for something and someone's out of office or something, you can find it. You don't have to wait till they come back. And I think with volunteers, it's super helpful too, because if your volunteers are turning over, they might not be volunteering anymore. You don't want to lose the great work that they've done. So these are all super helpful tips.
Another tip I'll mention, just because it just came to my mind and we haven't talked about, and I'm sorry if you can hear this leaf blower outside, I apologize. Cloud search we didn't mention, which is a really cool tool, and we use it a ton at Google. And it takes this power of Google search, which everyone's probably pretty familiar with, and it puts it into your Google Workspace environment. I almost just called it G Suite. I'm still not even used to it. It puts it into your Google Workspace environment. So if you're looking for a specific training document, like if I'm looking for to be trained about the Google nonprofit program, I can type into the the cloud search Google Workspace nonprofit program, and it's going to surface everything, and it keeps in mind intuitively the security settings that your organization has in place. So it's not going to show me anything I don't have access to. It's going to show me everything I do have access to, slide decks, documents, any resources that I have access to that closely relate to those search terms. So really cool, powerful functionality that, as we just demonstrated, gets we forget to mention it sometimes, but we use it really heavily at Google, and we've seen it be really powerful for other organizations too.
Awesome. Thank you. A couple more questions. So one question that we've had about the new updated features of Google Meet, do we know when those will be rolled out to Google Workspace for nonprofits? So things like breakout rooms, like when would a nonprofit be able to access that in the Google Workspace for Nonprofits edition?
So different features are going to land in different editions. So what we suggest is always keeping an eye on the sort of Google Workspace support site, which if you type in literally like Google Workspace support into your browser, you will find it. We'll actually walk through like new features that are launching and which editions they'll be associated with. In some cases, some features like being able to record Google Meet meetings and then saving them to Drive aren't available in the Google Workspace for Nonprofits edition, in part because of the storage limits, right? Like something to think about there. But other features like polling and that kind of stuff have actually launched to that edition. So if you're an admin of Google Workspace, you can always go into your admin console and see kind of for all of the apps that your organization is using, kind of what the different features are. And sometimes you can enable or disable things depending on how quickly you want to maybe roll out new features to your team. And then as always, you can jump in and see any new feature that is launched will automatically show up for your users. So it's not like you have to like download something different, right? Like as an admin, go into your admin console and you can turn things on and off. But once you turn them on for the units or for your whole organization, people will automatically have access like the next time they open that app.
Okay, awesome. Super helpful. And then one more question that's more about the additions. And I guess it's kind of like a two-part question. So one thing is about the discounts on the SKUs. Are those business and enterprise SKUs the same as like what a normal consumer would use? And they're just discounted, or are they different for nonprofits?
Yeah, great question. It's the exact same edition as like a big Fortune 500 company might be using, but you have a nonprofit specific discount.
Awesome. And then second part of that I saw come in, let me just make sure. Oh, about if a nonprofit wants to upgrade some seats, do they have to do the whole organization, or can they just upgrade certain seats? I know we get this question on the community forum quite a bit too. So I thought
we get this question a lot. So right now, if you're on the free edition of Google Workspace for nonprofits, it's sort of an all or nothing. Like if your domain is on that free edition, all of your users are on the free edition, and you can't just upgrade a subset of people. We're working on that for the future, so don't quote me on it, but hopefully we'll have something to come back to you all on in the near future, we'll say. If you are already on business or enterprise on the nonprofit edition, on the nonprofit discount, you can actually do kind of a mix between maybe you want some users on business plus and some users on business standard. You can actually do that, but I believe you need to actually get in touch with a person to enable it. So I don't know, Kimberly, if you want to talk about that piece, or you want
getting in touch with a person to enable it.
Yeah.
If you I'm not sure actually what the official process is for that, but if you go to like the Google Workspace website and you click on the contact sales button, you'll get in touch with someone who will ask you a bunch of questions about what you're trying to do and route you to the appropriate person. So if you need that like SKUs splitting functionality, someone on my team probably will be the one to help you. So we could be talking again in the near future if you're looking to do that.
Yeah. And when in doubt, you can always, in the admin console, so admin.google.com, at the top right, there's like a little, I think it's a question mark in a bubble, but you can get in touch with support, and they are very adept at routing you to the right folks as well. So that's another good one.
I added the banner here just so we could see the link.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that might be all the questions that came through. I think the other questions were answered in chat, but I'll give everybody just one more minute to see if any more questions come through. And in the meantime, I'll let everybody know a couple quick reminders of common questions that we get about the show. So I've seen a couple questions that come through about how to know when the next episode is happening. For that, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is the link. And this is the YouTube channel that we're currently on right now for this show. And if you subscribe and opt to set up reminders and notifications, so there's a little bell. If you click the bell, you'll be notified when we schedule the next live stream. Usually they're every 2 weeks on Thursdays. They're at different time zones to accommodate people all over the world. But sometimes the schedule changes slightly. So just keep an eye on the YouTube channel. We also always post them on Twitter and on Facebook. So if you follow us and like us on Facebook, you'll be able to see that. And then for common questions, you may find that like some of the questions that you have may have been asked by other nonprofit organizations already, and we've answered them in the community forum. So if you have a question, I highly recommend going to this community forum link and checking there, because you may find your answer there. And if you don't, feel free to post on the community forum, and other members of the nonprofit community or Google for Nonprofits team members will be answering those questions as they come through. So thank you so much. And we also have a survey, and I highly recommend filling out this survey. If you have any feedback about the show, you can let us know what other things you want to hear about. If you take the survey, it's goo.gle/webinar. You can request any sort of topics, and we actually schedule the show based off the topics we get in the webinar. And we are super open to feedback. If you have anything you want to change or improve about the show, let us know. Sorry, you can probably hear my dog barking. Apologize for that.
I was going to say, Bruno wants to make an appearance.
Yeah, he's ready for a treat, I think. Awesome. I don't think we have any other questions. Or one more, actually. How can you see participants while presenting on Google Meet?
Oh, such a great question.
See participants while presenting. There are a number of different layouts. If you go, when you're in Meet, there's, it's like muscle memory. So I have to remember how to describe it. I think it's 3 dots in the bottom right corner, and you can choose the layout you want. So you can pick, if you want to center the presentation, or if you want to, there are a bunch of different layouts. So you can choose how you want to view the experience there. Anything you would add there, Meredith? I haven't described that without being actually looking at it.
So. I know, I like how you're like, I have to go to the bottom right. The other thing I'll add is, I know, so I have a monitor and my laptop, which is like how I get most of my work done. But if you're just presenting like on one screen and you're in a Meet, sometimes it can be a challenge to like have the slides that you're presenting and then also see the people that you're presenting to in the Meet. And what I do typically is honestly just put the presentation in one window and the Meet in another window, and then tile them a little bit so that like the presentation might be a little bit smaller and then you can see the people in the Meet window. But that can be a little bit of a challenge if you can't like separate it on 2 screens, basically.
Yeah, that's what I do. I have 2 monitors. And then I also, when I'm choosing to present on Meet, I say share a tab instead of sharing my entire window. Yeah. And that's also to make sure, like if I get chat messages or something like that when I'm presenting, then no one can see those things. Yeah. And basically I share a tab on one screen and I use presenter mode. So that way I can actually just have the presentation in a browser instead of on the whole screen. And then from there, I look at the Meet and then I present on both. So that's kind of what I do. 2 monitors really helps. Highly recommend for this use case.
Yeah, I better understand the question now that you both explained it. If you're using Chrome, you can also just cast a tab. So you can have like the 2 tabs open right next to each other. I'll just cast the tab. And then, you can jump into the tab where you're presenting so that you're able to see, again, pick the layout that how you want to view the meeting, and you can see what you're doing. And then when you need to progress the slide, just jump back over and progress to the next slide. Is one potential way of doing it.
Yeah, and that you can do with one screen, right? You won't need to use. Okay, so that's a good workaround. Yeah, it's not a perfect experience quite yet, but I'm sure it's something that's being worked on.
Yeah, we've heard that feedback for sure. I'll say that.
Awesome. Well, I'll just double check one more time in the chat to see. All right, I think that is all of the main questions that we have today. So thank you everybody for joining. It was super awesome to see the chat was really lively this time. So I just wanted to say thank you all for participating and asking your questions. The whole purpose of the show is to get some time to do the live chat and to talk about different topics. So I'm really glad to see that happening. So keep on coming back. Our next episode is it's May 6th is our next episode. And yeah, keep up to date on the YouTube channel and you'll be able to see the next topics that we have. Awesome. And thank you, Meredith and Kim, for joining us today. It was super helpful.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Bye, everybody. Stay safe.